to our second session for our remote learners and caregivers. This session is for students in grades 6 through 12. And as soon as we get our Zoom and YouTube link up and running here, which I think we might have just done, I'm going to introduce our guests that we have this evening. First of all, I want to introduce Erica Hesselstrom. She's our Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, and she's actually going to be leading us tonight through the majority of this session. We also have Brenda Lehman, who's our Director of Technology and has really been doing a lot of the heavy lift for everything to do with how we're able to connect now and our Chromebooks and our Zoom and everything else. So welcome, Brenda. It's great to see you. And last but not least is Dr. Cole. He's our principal at our middle school, and he's going to be able to provide some administrative building perspective on some of the pieces that we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm kind of going to be the moderator, and I'm also going to participate when I can. If you were unable to see this, or if you have friends that are unable to see this, you can let them know that probably by 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, YouTube will be ready to have this available as a recording. And you can come to this exact same link that you used to get here now and be able to find it as a recording. You can use the chat feature that's in YouTube to be able to ask any questions that you might have. And in a little bit here, I will be able to put up a couple of links that'll be available to you after the show is completed, okay? So without further ado, I'm gonna have Erica take over here. She's gonna share her screen and take us through, well, at least get the screen started so I can do a piece here.
Okay.
All right. So this is our contact, that was our contact information. Our contact information there. If you wanna, you can get a hold of us in a variety of ways. You can call us here at school. We both use Twitter pretty regularly, and we also have email addresses. If you're on Facebook, you can send messages to Facebook. However you'd like to get a hold of us, we'll be available. We really want to make sure that everybody's questions get answered as we move through the school year. I already kind of gave the introductions, so there's three main objectives for this evening, and we'll try to keep this as short and sweet as possible because we know how busy people are. The first one is it's to support parents of students who are remote or hybrid. So when you're at home and your child has a question about how to use the computer or what applications to get on or how to do that, the purpose of this is to get you through that, or at least get you thinking about it so you can get a hold of us later to ask more questions. And the second piece along those lines is to make sure that we give you the correct supports and troubleshooting solutions. It's one thing to know that you have an issue. It's another thing to not know who to contact and how to contact them to get those questions resolved. And third, most school districts in the United States receive some of their funding from the federal government, which means they have to abide by the rules of the Every Student Succeeds Act, and we are no different at Whitman. So one of the requirements of meeting ESSA is having some occasional parent meetings, whether they be virtual or in person, to talk about a variety of topics. And tonight's topic is going to be about remote and virtual learners. So Mrs. Hesselstrom, why don't you take it away?
Right. So at the beginning of the school year, we had conversations with all of our teachers about talking to our students, both UPK through 5 and 6 through 12, to make sure that your child, when they're working, has a set up space for them to be learning at. And as I met with the teachers who are teaching both virtually, hybrid, and remote, they talked a lot about this needing to be a little bit more emphasized, particularly with some of our 6 through 12 students. So when we talk about where our students should be working in grades 6 through 12, we want them to have a quiet, consistent place to work with an adult nearby, maybe, and maybe not laying in their bed or having their device facing the ceiling, trying to make sure that we keep them present in the Zoom. That's how we know that they're engaging with us. And so we want to make sure that that workspace is a place where they can be seated and be directly looking at their camera, maybe not laying in bed and not lounging around. We've talked to the students about making sure that they mute themselves when they log into Zoom, and to make sure that they keep their video on the whole time. Like I said before, that is an engagement piece. It's how they still are able to connect with each other. If you walk into any of the classrooms, the majority of them will have a screen with all the students' pictures up on the smartboard. It kind of looks like the Brady Bunch. That's what we call it, the Brady Bunch screen, so that the kids can see each other and see the responses to things. And that helps to make sure that that connection stays real when they don't see each other every single day. One of the things that's come up this last week, while we want to have an adult maybe nearby, particularly with our sixth graders, seventh graders, if that's not possible, we understand that piece. But we want to make sure that the students are working by themselves while they're Zooming. So they're not trying to partner up with somebody, and maybe not paying full attention to what it is that they're supposed to be learning. And the other thing that's kind of interesting, I read an article last week about the workings of a middle school and high school schedule, and how when a class starts at 10:28, that's a little bit different than what parents are used to in their normal schedules. But for students, that's the schedule they're used to following. And we want to make sure that they stay tuned into that schedule and are reporting to their class in that time frame. The teachers have set up a plan where they've talked to their students about this, that they'll basically give like 5 to 10 minutes to get into the class, in terms of the Zoom. But they also want to make sure that students are getting into the Zoom and troubleshooting as quickly as possible on that schedule, because they have both students in the room and virtually. So one of the things that we really put a lot of emphasis into, even before we went into pandemic, was our PBIS, our positive behavioral intervention systems. And that's my children laughing at a show downstairs. Super sorry about that. Um, and digital citizenship. Oh, digital citizenship. I'll work on that with the 5-year-olds. Um, we've really talked to our students a lot about making sure that those characteristics of positive behavioral intervention are happening both virtually and face to face. So the next couple of slides are going to take a look at what it looks like in the high school to show pride. And it includes both work that's happening when students are face to face and when they're not. So when we talk about being productive in the classroom, it means they're completing their work, they're troubleshooting and problem solving with distance learning. They're returning their work to classwork promptly. They're encouraging their peers. They're being kind to others. So when they enter into that Zoom meeting, they're saying, "Hi, how are you?" Even if they're virtual. Trying to make sure that we continue those characteristics of pride. One thing that the high school specifically did is make up this Bitmoji of characteristics of what it looks like to Zoom. And all the students have access to this in their Schoology. Trying to get them to log on a few minutes early, use the gallery view so they can see the other kids in the class, speaking clearly, not dominating a conversation, showing respect. And the kids have been doing a really great job with this. But they kind of like the way this is set up so that they could just kind of look and remember when they have to mute themselves or when they have to unmute themselves. In the middle school, they stayed with their very similar to what their matrix had been last year, but added in the pieces of what do we have to do when we're using technology. So even if your classroom is your classroom at home, you're still engaging and participating, you're still completing your work. You're treating the room, meaning your Zoom room, with care, and trying to keep those connections, those positive points similar from being face-to-face and while being at home. Dr. Cole, if you want to jump in at any point in time about your middle school PBIS, you're more than welcome to. So in this, we kind of kept the same expectations for all students, but expanded them to what it looks like virtually. I'm going to take a minute and see if there's any questions coming through.
Yeah, now one of the things that I wanted to mention is that our YouTube feed is about 20 seconds behind our actual Zoom presentation. So sometimes when we get to these question points, we're just making sure and giving it a few seconds to make sure that if anybody's got a question, they've had an opportunity to ask it. But if we move on and you haven't asked it yet, don't worry. You can ask a question at any time. I'm trying to do the best job that I can of taking those questions, getting them to Mrs. Hasselstrom if I can't answer them myself, or to Mrs. Lehman or to Dr. Cole. So right now you have the green light, Mrs. Hasselstrom. You can keep going.
Okay. Okay. So the next thing that when I met with teachers of both remote and hybrid students, we talked a lot about troubleshooting. So one of those characteristics in our PBIS matrices were that students were able to figure out what they needed to do to be successful in their learning. So there's been a couple of things that have come up, and I'm going to actually pop out of the shared slideshow for a minute to show you some of the resources that we have. Now, one thing that we've noticed with students and sometimes with parents is that they're having a hard time following all the tabs that pop up here at the top of their screen. So we try to remind the students that they have like an anchor tab. That's the tab where they're leaving from. So I'm in a slideshow right now. It's this yellow tab. It might look like a Schoology S. It might look like a Google Drive. But so that students are able to navigate back and forth when they have 30 tabs going across their screen. But I wanted to show you a couple of places where you can go to get resources and support to troubleshoot for your students. So the first place is, of course, the Marcus Whitman homepage. And on this homepage, over here to the left is the COVID-19 resources. That's where we keep all of our resources about our opening plans, any changes we have to make to those, what we're doing in terms of grab and go meals, and how we're continuing with academics. But for parents, there's a couple of great spots for you to look to find resources for your children. So under parents, you maybe have been here before when you've had to do some forms or registrations or whatnot. One of the things I'd like to point out to you is this Schoology parent access page. So on here, every student uses Schoology. Every teacher uses Schoology. Parents can log into their own parent Schoology account and see what their own specific child is doing in their classrooms. It's a good idea to set up a parent account because it allows you to see what grades your students got in those classes, although our grades typically run through School Tool, what homework assignments they might be missing, and what the calendar of events is for their classrooms. I will put out a disclaimer. If you are a parent who also works in a school system, either at Marcus Whitman or another district that uses Schoology, you should sign up for your parent account in your personal email account. So I have a kindergartner. I cannot use my school account, E. Hasselstrom, as his Schoology parent account because it will try to link it to my actual Schoology work account. So if you're a parent that works in a district that uses Schoology, you should use your personal email address, not your school email address. Also in this parents category, there's a School Tool parent portal. That's how parents log into School Tool. And one more thing that I didn't show on our earlier session that is linking and working well now is this Quick Links Chromebook help. Mrs. Lehman and her staff has done an amazing job of keeping track of what we need to do to log into your Chromebook. What are the apps that you can use? Making sure that you can troubleshoot the things that are happening on your Chromebook, common issues in Schoology. And these instructions are updated pretty regularly. So it's important for students to note that that's a great spot for them to go to, Quick Links and Chromebooks. One second. So in meeting with the teachers, one of the first issues that we heard as a pretty big troubleshooting issue was I can't get into Zoom. Okay, so we had some days where there were network issues across our region, not just at Marcus Whitman, and we had some days where there were some Zoom issues. And so one of the things we tried to troubleshoot with students is that they know what to do when they get a page that pops up in Zoom. So the first thing is they should always be checking their Schoology accounts for their class that they're trying to log into. That's where they're going to get the updates that are going to tell them what the Zoom link is. One thing that we've noticed is that if they get a sign that says, please wait for the host to start the meeting, that means the teacher hasn't started the Zoom yet, and they just need to wait a few minutes and it'll get updated and the teacher will log them in. If If they have a page that says, please wait to join the meeting, that means that they're sort of into the meeting. They're in the waiting room and their teacher's going to let them in pretty soon. So maybe a class is changing over and the teacher needs just a few extra minutes, but they're in the waiting room and they can send a message to the teacher to let them know that they're there. That's a super important feature when they come into a Zoom session a little late. So we're telling teachers, and teachers are telling students that there's like a 5 to 10 minute buffer, depending on the class, of getting into the Zoom session. So if, let's say you had an appointment and you were running 15 minutes late, it's a good idea once you get into that wait to join the meeting session that you send your teacher a message that says, I'm here. We have a tendency to do that as adults. Usually we send a text message. I did hear that maybe that was happening with some of our high schoolers, sending text messages to kids that are in the class. We're trying to avoid that to keep the students engaged in the work that they're supposed to be doing, but we do understand trying to problem solve. We get that. So that's if you can't get into Zoom. The next one is I got into Zoom. Now what? So now I'm in Zoom and it's glitchy. I'm lagging. Somebody's voice is talking, but their mouth's not moving. Somebody's not getting links sent to them. So we wanted to give some steps for students to take. So first, they can chat or raise their hand or send an email to the teacher to help alert the teacher to the problem. And then what we typically tell the students is that they need to close out of Zoom and get back into Zoom. Now, that might mean that they actually need to restart their Chromebook. You might remember in the spring, Mrs. Lehman and her staff pushed out an email or a message in Schoology every Monday saying, shut down your Chromebook all the way and log it back in. And that was great. It worked well once a week when we weren't Zooming all the time. Because we are Zooming now all the time, students really need to shut their Chromebooks down the entire way at least once a day. And that doesn't mean close the Chromebook. It has to actually power down. So that's one thing that the students are starting to learn, and we might need to send some updates to them in Schoology to help remind them of that for the next couple of weeks. So once they shut down their Chromebook and open it back up and power it back up, they should check and make sure that their Schoology Zoom link was correct. Log on to the Zoom link again. And then if Zoom is still not working, they have to look for what I'm now dubbing the Mrs. Hasselstrom trick. So my smartphone or tablet is always next to my laptop, always. If there's a smartphone or tablet next to your tablet or next to your Chromebook, it can interfere with the signal. So you have to move your smartphone, tablet, whatever, a little bit further away than just arm's reach so that you can make sure that it's not interfering. And if that still doesn't help, that typically causes a little bar that says your internet connection is unstable. If that doesn't help, then you're going to email or call the help desk and see if they can help support you with it. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And if it just doesn't work, we have teachers that are doing a really great job of putting things into Schoology. So our suggestion is if you can't get Schoology to work, you're going to pop in, I'm sorry, if you can't get Zoom to work, you're going to pop into Schoology and find what the work is that your class was doing. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Are there any Zoom questions? Troubleshooting for Zoom?
Just taking a look right now. So far, I don't see any. Oh, you're all set to continue.
I'm going to keep going. Okay. So one of the things that teachers mentioned to us that students aren't having a super hard time with, but sometimes parents are having a hard time when they're trying to support their student in Google is searching and finding things when you have a lot of file folders in Google. I used to be the person that had all of my files organized alphabetically, and then Google came along and I learned this trick and I stopped doing that, which may or may not have been a great idea, but I'm going to show you why it still works for me. So this icon, remember I said we got like this home base of where I am in terms of my Google Slides. I have this My Drive. In My Drive, that's where we're going to start to search for things that documents, photos, Google Sheets, and I'm going to actually do a quick search in my drive. Now, I know I have these photos that are in one of my drives back here, probably my virtual backdrops that can give me some photos I could use in a classroom. I feel like there's maybe a young Sheldon. Yeah, young Sheldon. So I typed in what I thought the keywords were, young Sheldon, and you can see I have 3 options there, which must mean I have 3 pictures of things about young Sheldon. So this must be young Sheldon's bedroom with Albert Einstein. So we use this as a backdrop sometimes for a virtual Zoom. And kids have used it as like a Bitmoji background to be able to put characters and whatnot on it. But I can do that quick search with any document, Google Sheet or Google Slide. And it's really makes it easy for me to find things. So if your student is thinking about a paper that they have to write in US history about Andrew Jackson, and they know they titled it something Andrew Jackson, and they search Andrew Jackson, they're going to find that document very quickly. But what you will notice is that it does pop up new tabs for me. So I'm starting to fill up here with all these little tabs going across the top. You have to remember where our base was, where were we starting here in that family engagement slideshow, and go back into it. Okay, that's Google Drive in a quick nutshell. Schoology. So Schoology is based on kids' schedules. I'm going to pop into Schoology in a new tab right over here and show you what it looks like for students when they go into Schoology. Students always go to courses, and in their courses, it's going to say things for them like Algebra Trig, Social Studies 8, ELA 7, Eco 6, 7, or Eco 6, ELA. For me, it says the courses that I've created for teachers, but I was lucky enough that Mrs. Carses, an elementary teacher, let me into one of her classes. We've told teachers that it's a really good idea to give a picture to each of their courses. Excuse me. So I'm going to open up this course that is Mrs. Carses's Sandbox. And we've taught teachers that when there's something new for students in Schoology, they're going to make this announcement. That announcement stays at the top of every page for them. It could be where they put their new Zoom link. It could say there's a new Zoom link in our Zoom folder. It could say our video link broke. Let's click on this video link. It's whatever the teachers actually need it to say. And one of the things that I find helpful for parents, teachers, and students is that the calendar, if I can get it to pop up. Excuse me. The calendar looks exactly the same for a student, for a teacher, and for a parent. So everybody's going to see the same thing that says early dismissal at 11:50 tomorrow. All right, I'm going to get back to my home screen. Here we go. Some of you might be asking questions about how we submit assignments. Oh, good, it popped up a new tab. Here's a nice little listing of how to submit an assignment that you are more than welcome to read and look at. Then we have this thing called Cami. Cami's a what? It's not a who, although we do know some people named Cami. Cami is a software program that takes PDFs and makes them interactive with us. We use it for a lot of our classes. And I'm going to show you a quick little video about how students submit things through Cami. Hopefully it works this time.
Hi, everyone. Rick Bray. Sample Cami assignment, and I can click on that just like I would normally. And once that loads, you'll notice there's a PDF file attached and a little button comes up that says Open Assignment with Cami. Awesome. As a student, again, I'm going to click on that. It's going to open a new tab and push that file out to Cami. It may require you to sign in with your Google account the first time, but I've already done that, so here I am. We'll let it finish loading. And basically, I now can annotate this file with the full function of Kami, right? So I can pull up my drawing tool, and I'm on a touchscreen Chromebook, so that lets me, annotate all over it and draw things, and that's great. Do the work that I want to do. When I'm all done as the student, you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, there's a little button that says Turn In. I'm going to click on that button, and it will ask me if I want to turn it in. I'm going to say yes. This drives this file back to Schoology for me as the student, and all I have to do is wait a second and say Submit when the box comes up. So we'll just give that a second to load. There we go. And I can now submit. And just like you would expect, I can see as the student on the right-hand side, it says I submitted it. I can resubmit it if I want. Life is good. Great. Let's take a look at it from the teacher side. Now on the teacher side, just like before, I can click into the assignment and I can see that something was submitted. I can click on that, and I'm able to annotate this using Schoology's native tools. So I can select text, I can highlight text, right? If I select that and highlight text, it highlights it, puts a note that I did something. I can also strike through text if that's what I wanted to do. I can add notes, right? Just like you saw before with other things. The one that I really like here is that you can draw. So I can also annotate back to the student, grade it, and life is good. And this can be done either through the web or through Schoology's app.
So one of the reasons why we posted that video is because it shows you both the student side and the teacher side. One of the things that we found in the spring with students who were turning assignments in from Kami, you actually have to click turn it in twice. And because of that, sometimes they were assignments weren't totally getting submitted. But the great thing about that is that there's so many ways that a teacher can give feedback to a student, which is really critical when they're working some days with us, some days not with us. If we're synchronous or asynchronous, it's really important to be able to keep giving that feedback. So that little video will be posted in with the resources that we post a little bit later. Okay. Okay, that puts us at questions.
Well, let me take a look here. Bob from Topeka, Kansas wants to know if Jackson Rushville is owned by a person named Jack. It actually is. No, I'm only kidding. We don't have any questions.
Is that your dad joke Friday?
I don't ever give up my dad jokes. They come out on Friday when they come out. That's it. So no questions right now. You're doing a great job. Why don't you keep moving us through that?
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to keep moving forward. So one of the things that we pointed out earlier and keep saying to our community is that this is a work in progress. Every day we're learning new things. I met with the teachers last week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and they gave me way different pieces of information than they had given me the week before in terms of their planning for what was happening with students. So every day we're learning new tools, and every day we're learning how to make things work a little bit smoother for students. And so we just want to thank you for your continued support of what we're doing at Whitman. And again, if there's any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to any of us who are on here, but here's Dr. Brown's and my information again. And thanks for taking the time to check in with us today.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that if you need help, you get it. We don't want you to be frustrated. This has been a challenge enough, I think, for everybody from your end to our end, all over the place. So if you need help, we just want you to be able to get it, and we'll help work you through anything that we possibly can. And you know, there's times where you'll ask us a question and we don't know the answer, and that's okay. We will say we don't know, but then we'll go find the answer and we'll get it to you. And actually, we'll get it to everybody because somebody else probably has the same question and didn't ask it. So thanks very, very much for attending tonight. And I want to thank Erica and Clay and Brenda for being on here as well. And everybody have a great night. And like I said, give this probably a good couple of hours, and you'll be able to watch the replay on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much and have a great night. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.